Hello, everybody. Welcome to this presentation with John Spear, which is going to be all about camera scanning for the DIY or professional simple tips. And I know that's a hot topic. So scanning is something that we all need to, everybody's got photos, slides, negatives, and whether you're hiring somebody to do it for you or you're going to do it yourself or you're going to start a business doing it, there are a lot of different choices and ways that you can do this out there. So I was thrilled to invite John Spear to be our guest today. And so he's going to join us and he's going to share with you his tips. And you're able to go ahead and as you have questions during this presentation, John said he likes to, doesn't mind being interrupted, so we can ask the questions as they come up. And we're really glad to welcome you all. So John, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll jump in and get started.
Hi. Spear, as Kathy mentioned. I run the Picture Organizer in Sammamish, Washington, which is a suburb just east of Seattle in the Northwest. Been playing this game for about 4 years professionally, but as most people, I've been the family history collector for the last 20 plus years. So I've been playing with different ways of scanning, different ways of storing and organizing photos for a very long time. Camera scanning, which has been up and coming for a few years now, is what really has started to make this work for both my family and for now my clients.
All right, so let's go ahead. You have a presentation that you're going to walk us through. So we'll be looking forward to hearing what you have.
So our topic today is simple camera scanning. That is the wrong button, and that is the right button. So we'll have a quick intro. We'll go over some equipment essentials, some minor setup, a few tips, some things about how to post-process, some optimizations that you can do in your workflow, and then a few common problems. And as Kathy said, please ask questions as they come up, and that'll help guide the discussion. And this is just kind of the statement of my business is like what we capture on film is captured forever. Things that you would forget are there for you to be reminded of as we take photos, which makes photos one of the more important things to help us keep our memories. So what is camera scanning? It uses a DSLR or a mirrorless camera in place of a flatbed scanner. One of the benefits is that you'll get a much higher resolution image much faster than you will with a flatbed scanner. A flatbed scanner, awesome device, but the technology is kind of stalled in the last 10-15 years. Doing a high resolution scan on a scanner could easily take anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes, depending on what resolution you choose. Whereas on a camera, it is the click of a shutter. If you want a higher resolution, you basically take more images closer to the image. But it's literally like 10 to 20 times faster to scan something using a camera than it is to use a scanner. It is more involved, far more versatility. I mean, as you can see from the background here, I'm taking a picture of a lunch bag. So the point is you're not limited to simply flat objects. You can do 3D objects. It's much easier to adjust, but it is costly unless you already have the camera in hand. So what are the essential equipment that you need? Well, a DSLR, basically a digital camera, or a mirrorless camera with at least 24 megapixels for the camera sensor. Ideally, you want to have something which is 40 to 50 megapixel, which is a medium to high-end DSLR. But anything 24 megapixel or above will give you very satisfactory images. You do need a semi-specialized lens, macro lens. It must have a 1-to-1 ratio. This way you will get non-distorted images. You'll need a camera stand, which you saw in my previous picture, or you can use a tripod, which you basically invert so the camera is hanging below the tripod instead of above. That makes it's much less expensive, because the average camera stand starts at around $300 and goes up to extremely expensive, depending on the level you want. To do the best job, you need a pair of daylight balanced LED lights, and that's called 5000 K or Kelvin, with some kind of either clamp arms to hang them from, or light stands to put on either side of where the photo will be sitting. You'll need some non-glare glass. Museum brand is the glass that I prefer and use. This keeps the image very flat. An optional thing is a daylight balanced light panel or a copy box. Actually, that's not optional. It's optional if you want to do, basically, if you need it, if you're going to do slides or negatives. And then you also need something to deal with dust. There are anti-static brushes that you can purchase, but dust is, as always, the enemy of scanning. So in the background here, you can see a version of my setup from a year or so ago, but you'll need a sturdy desk or table to place everything on. The camera stand, I'm not sure if you can see my pointer. The camera stand is back here, which is what the camera lives on. The lights are mounted to either side, and they need to be at a 45-degree angle to the plane of your scanning surface. This minimizes reflections and just gives a nice even light for your scanning. The settings, some simple settings. Your f-stop should be used generally always f8. Your light settings should be for daylight or sun. And then the aperture should be set to, or speed should be set to aperture priority. That way the camera will automatically adjust the speed based on how dark the image is that you're trying to take a picture of. One big thing is the camera must be level to the plane of the table. If that's not level to the earth, so if you put a level at the top of your camera, that will not be level. And when it's not level, you end up with a parallax where you kind of end up with one side of the picture being taller than the other, and it's just kind of odd looking. There is a simple trick to that, which I will get to shortly, but a mirror to use for leveling is really important. You should set the camera to autofocus. That will work for 98% of photos. If the photo you're trying to take a picture of is blurry, you'll need to manually focus it. You do want to fill as much of the camera frame as possible. And what I tell my people is that at least 2 of the 4 edges should match the edge of the picture you're trying to duplicate, which makes cropping much easier. And then, as I said, you use the museum glass to keep everything flat. A few tips. One interesting thing is, as I mentioned, you're going to fill the frame as much as possible, but you'll have extra space that'll be cropped out. If you can purchase from a camera store or Amazon a white balance card, which is basically a gray card. If you use that behind it, you now have something that you can use to set the white balance if you're choosing to edit the photos after you've taken it. And one thing you'll see in this image here, I'm shooting what you're seeing in the display here is the image of my camera in the mirror. And if the center of the lens is in the center of the frame, then your camera is level to the image you're trying to take. And it's just a matter of adjusting left and right and up and down. It's kind of fiddly, but once done, you'll be certain that you have perfectly square images. One thing, you're often shooting at fairly slow speeds, so you'll want to use a remote shutter release, which are available for most cameras. Some of them are remote controls, just a clicker. In the old days, it was something that looked like a syringe, because I used to have that with film cameras. And for people who do this professionally, there are foot pedals that you can attach to cameras to make it very, very easy. Another thing, you'll run the battery out on your camera, because you are shooting generally for a very long time as you do, 100 or 1,000 photos. Most cameras have the option of a battery adapter that replaces the battery and plugs into power. And these are very useful and helpful. The other thing, to avoid having to go onto a memory card and then taking that to your computer, there are applications like Lightroom Classic or some other applications that are camera specific that'll let you tether directly from your camera to the computer, so the image goes immediately to your computer in one step. That's kind of an advanced thing. It's not necessary, but like in my case, my cameras never have memory cards and never have batteries, because everything is directly connected. For post-processing, even though you'll get very nice images directly, there's always some things. Either the image wasn't very good when you had it printed, or sometimes just the camera will be harsh when it's taking an image. I use a program called Radiant Photo from Radiant Imaging Labs. It uses an AI and machine learning model to do very nice, fast, standard adjustments to every image. If you want to go a little bit further, Photoshop has some neural filters that do a very nice job of simple restorations. And then, of course, Photoshop can do all the things like removing cracks and making lots of adjustments. For workflow optimizations, the biggest thing is to group the photos by size before you start. If you have a stack of randomly sized photos, you're going to be moving the camera and adjusting it fairly every time you shoot. So what we always do is we take all the photos, we sort the 4x6s into one group, and the Polaroids into another group, and the old 60s 2x3 inch, and then we do them all in those groups. So that way you've set the camera once, and and you can quickly move photo to photo. The other thing is, if you've got boxes and boxes of photos, don't start scanning first, organize first. You want to get rid of the duplicates, get rid of the ones that you really don't want, the super blurry photos that you kept for reasons that made sense 20 years ago. But also, that'll just help you as you start culling down to the photos that you really want to keep. Common problems is your camera will not focus. Either the image you're shooting is blurry, or sometimes there's just not enough, because the camera is trying to do basically a contrast. It's looking for high contrast areas to figure out the edges so it can focus. 98% of the time that never happens, but at that point you're going to want to take it off of autofocus and manually focus at that point. It is annoying, but it's easy to get through. And also the aperture priority setting that I mentioned just doesn't work well on dark photos. They tend to come out too light and just kind of ugly. And for those, you may want to manually set the speed so that you get an image that you like. And then there's just dust. Dust is evil. Dust is something that I fight on a daily basis in my location. There are anti-static brushes. There are some very expensive dust removing tools from Kinetronics that that we use for slides and negatives. But a good anti-static dust brush is something you really want to have, because you'll want to use it as you put each image in, because those stacks of photos, there's lots of paper dust there. Now, this is a really high and quick overview discussion, but a really good and deep, detailed discussion or training is available from the photo managers. It is, the course is called Camera Scanning Simplified, and this goes into what great detail the things that I've gone over in a very high level, just to introduce the concept of camera scanning. I really do recommend that you do that. There will be a link in the, actually, I think it's already in the chat. But it's a really good course. There are a couple of other courses that I have used as well, including a book by, whose name I just forgot. Peter
Crow. Yeah. And it comes with actually the book comes with the course. Yeah.
Ah, awesome. Yeah, because I actually started with that book before some of these courses became available.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people are doing camera scanning now that didn't, because again, the idea, I think you mentioned too, that it's interesting how the scanning, scanners have not kept up with its changing technology, right? The companies are not investing in new scanners on it, and it's a tedious process for slides and negatives. It takes so much longer to do a slide scanning on a flatbed scanner, right?
Yeah, and a lot of scanner companies are discontinuing some of the scanner models that we've used for years and years, just because it's not a growth industry. Museums and such, they would have used these high-resolution, high-end scanners, have all moved to camera scanning or a version of it. Their cameras are, shall we say, a bit more expensive. But
yeah. The other thing is really interesting. I don't know if anybody watching is this person, but there's also a big growth in it because a lot of people are buying the old film cameras and shooting film again and then getting their film developed, and then they need to scan it so that they can manipulate it digitally. So that's become a real popular thing in the millennial. I think, people in their 20s and early 30s and things are buying those old standard cameras and adding, and then so that's where camera scanning is really growing as well. We've had a couple questions here, nothing specific about the setup. I don't know if anybody, Al says, I bought a light pad to scan negatives. Is there an app you recommend to scan negatives? Is using a light pad a good idea?
My basic philosophy is that any digital copy of a photo is a good digital copy. The applications that you can use using a phone or similar to scan negatives, they don't do a great job. But again, they do a good job. So I'm not saying don't do it, but you will, to me, they're not useful. But to an average person, I've done a lot of research into these things. As far as a good light pad, the best one to use is from a company called Kaiser. They're fairly expensive, although they are often on what I call the scratch and dent sale on Amazon. They're daylight balanced. It's called the Slim Light, and it's the best one to use. It's what I use when I'm doing odd size negatives, because I'll get some that are literally like 4 by 4 inches, which there is no other good system. So I'll use that as the light source. Again, it is balanced at 5000 K, which is the same as sunlight. So that is the best light pad to use. Many of the others they're just kind of low quality. As far as app, Kathy, I know that you've done some.
We work closely with, we have a great relationship with PhotoMine, which is an app which they have, their technology is pretty amazing. Again, it's not the same. I agree with John's philosophy. You know, at some level, some scan is better than none. But there is a quality issue difference. But they have done they keep developing their technology, and
Yeah,
be the one that I would use.
I mean, to be honest, it's through PhotoMine that I discovered the photo managers.
Oh, all right.
It was one of those webinars.
You're not the only one. Kimberly Melton joined us from PhotoMine too. Yeah, so there you go.
So yeah, no, it's useful if you want to do it by yourself and you don't want to go to the effort or the expense to set up a large setup. It's a good solution.
All right, so we've got some more questions coming in. If hiring out my slides for scanning, what is the going price to expect? From Mary.
For a good quality scan, you're looking like anywhere from 50 cents to $1 per image. There's less expensive. You're sending off your photos to who knows where. It's kind of a scary thing to me because they're precious. But so anywhere, assume 50 cents to $1 for a good high quality scan, so that you only have to do it once. I've had a few clients that used to use Costco back when they did it, and then they brought their stuff to me to do it again.
Yeah, quality. There is a quality issue with pricing. I know that becomes a big one, and I agree. John, somebody I know says, well, there's like Spirit Airlines, and then there's like Southwest.
Exactly.
Like
both will get you there. You might not be happy when you get there.
The quality of the scan can really vary in terms of the dust or things like that you might be on. Deborah says, what I like about scanning slides on my flatbed is the digital ice technology that cleans up the dust and mini scratches. How do you clean up slides that are difficult to clean, especially afterwards?
The digital ice technology, I have a hate relationship with. It is magical when it works. I was doing the negatives from our engagement in the late 80s. It turned my wife into a Muppet, quite literally. It just fuzzed her out. So it's like, I would never, ever recommend digital ice technologies. There are some very good dust removal programs. I particularly use, sorry, did not want that on that screen. A program called, where is it? Retouch for Me Dust, and that's Retouch the number 4 Me, ME. It does a magical job of removing dust. It has cut my time from spending like 2 to 3 minutes on an image that got dusty to seconds.
Huh.
So that's how I deal with dust. Otherwise, it's Photoshop and going forever.
Yeah.
But the real thing is use the anti-static brush. Get rid of the dust beforehand. That's the best solution, is get rid of as much dust as possible.
All right. Next question. We have a couple more. Rebecca, you got another one up there. A question to, how do you access the scratch and dent sales on Amazon?
Essentially, when you find an item and you go look in the right, kind of writing down as it listing the prices, there's usually something that says Amazon resale or Amazon warehouse. Those are the things that have been returned. And like one time on the light panel, I found one for literally 1/3 the price, and the only thing wrong was that the box was like horrifyingly damaged, but the item was not touched at all. And I almost exclusively purchased things that way. Save quite a bit of money that way.
Jennifer says, I'm trying to get I'm assuming camera scanning set up, and finally got her Rebel T7 tethered to Lightroom. I'm having trouble getting clear photos. Is that just lots of trial and error?
It is a bit of trial and error. That sounds like a focus problem. The main thing is to make sure that you're, like I say, grab a small mirror to ensure that your camera is flat and parallel. And then otherwise, it is going to be, if you're not using auto focus, I would definitely suggest using manual focus to deal with that. But it is trial and error. I mean, the first few days of doing camera scanning, I swear it took me 5 minutes to get a single scan, because just you fiddling and trying to. After a while, you finally realize it's good enough, and you'll get it dialed in. And once you get the settings dialed in, it pretty much stays.
Yeah, starts to move. Let's see. Jennifer made her own photo stand and a pipe and board and brought a magnetic grid. So she figured out a way to.
Yeah, that is a very common and really good way to set up a camera stand, because, as I mentioned, camera stands can cost anywhere from $300 to several thousand. But I see it very common that people will take a bit of galvanized pipe and a magnetic grid and a clamp for a camera, and they essentially get the same thing for $50.
Yeah, it's good to find out. Laura says, if you use a digital SLR that's less than 24 megapixels, how is the scan different from using one with 24 or greater?
It'll just be very low resolution. It's not that it's going to be bad. We try to maintain a standard of 300 pixels per inch on anything that we do. And it especially is going to be difficult if you're doing negatives or slides, because you just don't have enough pixels when you're doing those. On those, we aim for like 4,000 DPI, because we're completely filling the frame, but it will work. And again, it does follow my philosophy of a digital copy is good, regardless. I mean, because you don't have to get a digital copy, because at least you now have 2 copies. But it's just, it'll be a little blurry. It's not going to be as nice.
That's where do you get a magnetic grid?
Amazon is the easiest place. They're also available from a lot of cameras, the larger camera stores.
B&H probably has it, I would think.
B&H would be one. Yeah, they're fairly common because a lot of people do DIY camera scanning setups. So they're relatively easy to come by. I mean, and also I think they're used in schools. So I think that's why they're common. What size of lens? I prefer, it's a 100 millimeter. That gives me the best range. 100 millimeter is really best for doing like slides and negatives. But if I'm doing larger items, like 8x10s or up to very large items, I use a 60 millimeter macro lens. And the Smith Victor copy stand. That is the exact setup that I have. It is very hard. It is somewhat of a weakness. It is not a problem. Actually, a lot, I would almost say most photo managers use the Smith Victor because it is very affordable. Most people say that your friend is a small piece of cardboard to shim, so that you can basically, you lighten the screw, you release the screw a little bit, and you basically shim the camera until it comes back into line. I finally waited long enough and found an expensive Kaiser camera stand in England on eBay for about the price of a Smith Victor. Took about 4 years to find that. So, but yeah, that is very common. That is not it's not a negative. You've chosen good stuff, but basically you just need to shim it, and it will, I call it self-adjust over time. And so you'll need to reshim it occasionally. I actually used a rather interesting setup, so that using an arc mount that slides, and so I can adjust it with a thumb screw, basically on that back and forth, up and down. But yeah, it does pull the weight of the camera. It is a plastic nose on the Smith Victor. Like I say, almost every professional photo manager uses a Smith Victor if they do camera scanning, because it is the most affordable and good quality, really good quality.
Okay. I think that's it for our, I don't think we missed any questions. So yeah, so I think, thank you, John. This has been great. A good kind of overview. It's good to see the setup. If people had never seen what a camera scanning setup looked like, that's always kind of intriguing to notice what it is. And thank you everybody again for joining. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next month. And we also, the month of September, we'll be doing quite a bit of YouTube Live. So get ready for lots of information as we celebrate Save Your Photos Month, which kind of goes along with what John said, though. You know, there's this, there's good, best, and, you know, the best of all. But we always believe that a copy, some doing something with your photos so that you can have them into the future is better than doing nothing at all. So that kind of ties in really well. So thank you again, everybody. Thanks, John, for your time, and have a good day. Bye-bye, everybody.
You too.